I adjusted my tie for the 100th time, staring at my reflection in the hotel elevator's mirrored walls. The suit I wore cost more than most cars, but Steve would still find something to criticize. He always did. I'm Alexander Carter, though most people in the business world know me as A.J. Carter, CEO of Carter Innovations, but to my sister's husband, I'm just Alex, the family disappointment who does something with computers. The elevator doors opened to the grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton, where Steve's company was hosting their annual corporate gala. I wasn't invited, technically, but my sister Emma insisted I come, hoping to patch things up between Steve and me, as if that were possible. Alex, Emma waved from across the room, her designer dress sparkling under the chandeliers. Next to her, Steve's face darkened when he saw me. Even from a distance, I could see him whispering something to her, probably wondering why she'd invited the black sheep of the family. You actually came, Steve said as I approached, not bothering to hide his disdain. He looked me up and down, searching for something to mock. Nice suit, rental? Steve, Emma hissed, elbowing him. Be nice. What? I'm just surprised he cleaned up for once. Usually looks like he just rolled out of bed. I bit back a response. Emma didn't know about the contract. Neither did Steve, though he should have, considering he'd been trying to land it for months. Mr. Morrison wants to meet you, Emma said to Steve, nodding toward a group of executives across the room. He said something about that big deal you've been working on? Steve's chest puffed up immediately. The Harrison account, $2 million on the line. Biggest deal of the quarter. He straightened his tie, already moving toward the executives. Coming, dear? In a minute, Emma said. I want to catch up with Alex first. Steve's lip curled. Don't waste too much time. This is an important night for me. He glanced at me. Some of us have real careers to worry about. As Steve walked away, Emma turned to me with apologetic eyes. He's just stressed about this deal. He doesn't mean. Yes, he does. I cut her off. He's meant every insult for the past 5 years. Alex. It's fine, Em. I'm used to it. I checked my phone, seeing a message from my assistant. Everything was in place. How about we get a drink? We made our way to the bar, where Emma ordered something complicated and I stuck with water. I needed a clear head for what was coming. So how's work? She asked, trying to sound casual. Still doing the computer thing? I had to smile at that. Even my own sister had no idea what I really did. Something like that. You know, Steve might be able to help you get a real job. His company is always hiring. I have a job, Emma. Of course you do. I just meant something more stable, with benefits and everything. Before I could respond, a commotion near the center of the room caught our attention. Steve was holding court with a group of executives, his voice carrying across the ballroom. The Harrison contract is as good as signed, he was saying, just waiting on their CEO to stop playing hard to get. Laughter rippled through the group. I checked my phone again, right on time. Ladies and gentlemen, a voice announced over the speakers, please welcome the CEO of Harrison Enterprises, Mr. James Harrison. The crowd parted as a distinguished man in his 60s made his way to the center of the room. Steve practically tripped over himself rushing to greet him. Mr. Harrison, such an honor. I was just telling everyone about our upcoming deal. Yes, about that, Harrison interrupted. There's been a change of plans. Steve's smile faltered. I don't understand. We've decided to go in a different direction. In fact, Harrison looked around the room. Is A.J. Carter here tonight? My moment had arrived. I squeezed Emma's arm and whispered, watch this. Actually, I said loudly, stepping forward, I am. The look on Steve's face was priceless. Alex, what are you doing? This is a private conversation. A.J. Harrison's face lit up. I didn't expect to see you here. Have you two met? Steve looked between us, confusion written all over his face. Mr. Harrison, this is my brother-in-law. He's nobody. Nobody? Harrison laughed. This man is the CEO of Carter Innovations, the company that just acquired Harrison Enterprises. The silence that fell over the room was deafening. Emma's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. That's impossible, Steve stammered. He can't even afford a suit. I pulled a folded document from my inside pocket. the contract Steve had been chasing for months. Actually, this Brioni suit cost more than your car, and as for the deal you've been working on, I held up the contract. I signed it this morning. From the other side of the table. Steve's face went from red to white to a sickly shade of green. You're the CEO they've been trying to set up a meeting with? For the past 3 months, I confirmed, though I have to say, your emails calling me an arrogant tech bro who doesn't understand real business were particularly entertaining. Emma stepped forward, her eyes wide. Alex, what's going on? Your brother, Harrison said proudly, is one of the most successful tech entrepreneurs in the country. Carter Innovations is revolutionizing the industry. That's why we agreed to the acquisition. But you live in that tiny apartment, Emma protested. You wear the same clothes all the time. Because I choose to, I said simply. Success isn't about showing off. Emma, something Steve never understood. Steve seemed to find his voice again. This is some kind of joke. You're nothing but a loser who can't afford a suit. I finished for him. You might want to update that assessment, especially since I'm now effectively your boss's boss. The color drained from his face again as the implications sank in. Oh, and Steve? I added, enjoying this more than I probably should. About that promotion you were promised? We'll need to reevaluate that. I'm not sure someone with your attitude is right for a leadership position. As Steve sputtered and Emma stared, I turned to Harrison. Shall we discuss the transition plans? Lead the way. Jay, Harrison said cheerfully, following me toward the private meeting rooms. Behind us, I could hear Steve's colleagues already starting to whisper. His carefully constructed image of success was crumbling, and he had no one to blame but himself. But the story of how we got here, that's even better than the look on his face when his world fell apart. 5 years earlier, I was fresh out of college when I started Carter Innovations in my garage. While Steve was climbing the corporate ladder and mocking my little computer hobby, I was developing the algorithm that would revolutionize data security. Emma tried to be supportive, in her way. Maybe you could get a job at Steve's company, she'd suggest, just until your project takes off. But I knew I was onto something big. My team consisted of 3 other developers who shared my vision. We worked around the clock, surviving on ramen and energy drinks, pouring everything we had into the code. Steve, of course, never missed an opportunity to belittle our efforts. Playing with your computer friends again? He'd sneer at family gatherings. When are you going to grow up and get a real job? I remember one Christmas dinner particularly well. Steve had just gotten a promotion, and he wouldn't shut up about it. Corner office, company car, 6-figure salary, he boasted. This is what success looks like, Alex, not whatever you're doing in that garage. What he didn't know was that earlier that day, we'd secured our first major investor, $10 million in seed funding. I could have bought his company car with the money in my checking account. But I stayed quiet, let him think what he wanted. Success isn't about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. The algorithm we developed caught the attention of major tech companies. Suddenly, Carter Innovations was the hot new startup everyone wanted a piece of. We moved from my garage to real offices, hired more developers, expanded our reach. Through it all, I maintained my modest lifestyle, lived in the same apartment, drove the same car, wore the same clothes. Money changes people. I'd seen it happen to Steve. I was determined not to let it change me. Emma and Steve got married 2 years into my company's rise. By then, Carter Innovations was worth 9 figures, but only a handful of people knew I was the CEO. I attended their wedding as the shabby brother-in-law who hadn't quite figured life out yet. Steve made sure to seat me at the back, away from his important business associates. Can't have you embarrassing me, he said. Some of these people could be crucial to my career. Little did he know that 3 of those crucial people had already signed multi-million-dollar contracts with my company. I let him have his moment, let him build his house of cards, because sometimes, the best revenge isn't about knocking someone down, it's about letting them climb so high that the fall does all the work for you. Present day. The aftermath of the revelation at the corporate gala was exactly what you'd expect. Steve tried to damage control, claiming he'd known all along who I was, that it was all some elaborate joke between brothers-in-law. Nobody bought it. Emma cornered me in one of the private meeting rooms after my discussion with Harrison. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded, hurt evident in her voice. "Would you have believed me?" I asked quietly. "Or would you have taken Steve's side, like you always do?" She flinched. "That's not fair. Isn't it? How many times did you sit there while he insulted me? How many times did you suggest I get a real job, instead of defending my choices? I was worried about you," she protested. "Living in that tiny apartment, working all hours. I chose that apartment, Emma. I chose everything about my life. Success doesn't have to look like Steve's version of it." She was quiet for a moment, processing. How successful are you, exactly?" I pulled up my company's latest valuation on my phone and showed her. Her eyes went wide. That's billions." "Yes. And all this time, you let us think." "I let you think what you wanted to think. You and Steve were so convinced you knew what success looked like that you never bothered to look closer." Emma sank into a chair, looking shell-shocked. "Steve's going to lose his mind when he processes all this." "Steve's going to lose more than his mind," I corrected. "The acquisition means every executive position is under review. His behavior tonight didn't exactly make a strong case for keeping him." "You wouldn't fire him?" "No. But demote him? Transfer him to a smaller office? Absolutely. Actions have consequences, Emma. It's time he learned that." "He's my husband," she said softly. "And I'm your brother. But that didn't stop either of you from treating me like a failure for 5 years." Before she could respond, there was a commotion outside. Steve's voice carried through the door, slurred and angry. "Where is he? Where's that little tech nerd who thinks he can ruin my life?" I sighed. "Sounds like your husband found the bar." Emma jumped up. "I should let security handle it," I said, already texting my head of security. Like I said, actions have consequences. We watched through the window as 2 suited men quietly but firmly escorted a protesting Steve from the ballroom. His face was red, his tie askew, his carefully crafted image of corporate success thoroughly shattered. "What happens now?" Emma asked. Now I run my company." Steve adjusts to his new reality. "And you." I turned to face her. "You decide whether you want to know your actual brother, or if you prefer the version of me you and Steve created in your heads." She had the grace to look ashamed. "I'd like to know my actual brother." "Good." I checked my watch. "Because he has a board meeting tomorrow morning, and a corporate merger to oversee. The real world of business waits for no one, not even humbled brothers-in-law." The next few weeks were interesting, to say the least. Steve was transferred to a smaller branch office, not quite a demotion, but definitely not the career trajectory he'd planned. His expense accounts were audited, his client list reviewed, his personnel file scrutinized. Every time he tried to protest, I simply pulled up the emails he'd sent mocking me over the years. Amazing how quickly family loyalty becomes important when the power dynamic shifts. Emma made efforts to rebuild our relationship. She asked about my work, really asked, not just made polite conversation. She visited my office, met my team, saw firsthand what I'd built while she and Steve were dismissing me as a failure. "I don't understand," she said one day, looking around my penthouse office. "Why didn't you ever say anything? Show us any of this?" "Because I didn't need to prove myself to anyone," I replied. "Success isn't about validation from others. It's about believing in yourself when no one else does." She nodded slowly. "Steve's struggling with everything." "I imagine he is. It's hard when your entire worldview gets turned upside down." "He wants to apologize." I laughed. "No, he wants his corner office back. There's a difference." "He's still family," she said quietly. "Family works both ways, Emma. He spent years tearing me down, trying to make himself feel bigger. Now he can spend some time building himself back up, the right way this time." 3 months after the gala, Steve finally swallowed his pride enough to request a meeting. He came to my office, looking uncomfortable in the waiting room where he once might have been the one keeping others waiting. "Your brother-in-law is here," my assistant announced, not bothering to hide her smirk. She'd heard enough of Steve's voicemails over the years to enjoy this moment. "Send him in." Steve entered like a man walking to his own execution. Gone was the arrogant swagger, the condescending smirk. Amazing what a few months of humility can do to a person. "Alex, I mean, Mr. Carter. Alex is fine. Steve, we are family. After all, when it's convenient for you. He winced. I deserve that. You deserve a lot more than that. Have a seat. He sat, fidgeting with his tie. The silence stretched between us. I'm sorry, he finally said. For what, specifically? For years of mockery? For treating me like a failure? For trying to convince my sister I was an embarrassment? Or just for finding out you were wrong? All of it, he mumbled. I was insecure. That made me laugh. Insecure? You had everything you thought defined success. The title, the office, the salary. What did you have to be insecure about? I knew I was just playing a part, following a script. You were actually building something, creating something. I didn't understand it, so I mocked it. I leaned back in my chair, studying him. And now? Now I understand what real success looks like. It's not about the corner office or the fancy car. It's about vision, creation, impact. He met my eyes. Everything I pretended to have, you actually built. Interesting perspective. Why should I believe it's genuine? Because I'm not asking for my old position back, he said quietly. I'm asking for a chance to learn, really learn, from the bottom if necessary. Now that was unexpected. The bottom, I repeated. You'd be willing to start over? Give up the executive perks? Work your way up based on merit rather than manipulation? He nodded. I want to understand what you built. Really understand it, not just wear the title. I considered this. Our entry-level coding program starts next month. 3 months of intensive training, followed by a junior developer position if you pass. Starting salary is 1/3 what you're making now. Steve swallowed hard but nodded again. I want to do it. Why? Because. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Because I want to be the kind of success you are. Real success, not just the appearance of it. I pulled up the program application on my computer and turned the screen toward him. Fill it out, like everyone else. No special treatment. Thank you, Alex. Don't thank me yet. The program has a 70% washout rate, and your previous behavior means you'll be watched more closely than most. He stood, straightening his shoulders. I understand. And, I really am sorry, for everything. As he turned to leave, I called after him. Steve? He paused at the door. That suit doesn't fit you properly. If you're going to work here, learn to dress like you respect yourself, not like you're trying to impress others. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Any recommendations for a tailor? Check your email. And Steve, welcome to the real world of success. Try not to let it go to your head this time. Epilogue. 1 year later. The annual corporate gala looks very different from the CEO's perspective. I watch from the sidelines as employees mingle, deals are discussed, connections are made. Emma appears at my elbow, radiant in a simple black dress. Quite a change from last year. Quite a change from every year. I agree. Across the room, Steve is explaining a coding concept to a group of new hires. He's wearing a perfectly tailored suit now, but his enthusiasm is focused on the technology, not his appearance. He survived the training program, barely, worked harder than he ever had in his life, learned what it means to earn respect rather than demand it. He's different, Emma says, following my gaze. Success does that to people, I reply. Real success, not the illusion of it. You never needed the illusion, she observes. No, I had something better. I had belief in myself. Steve catches us watching and raises his glass in acknowledgement. There's respect in his eyes now, not resentment, understanding, not envy. Think he finally gets it? Emma asks. I watch as Steve turns back to his group, pulling out his laptop to demonstrate a piece of code he's particularly proud of. His audience leans in, genuinely interested. Yeah, I smile. I think he finally does. Success isn't about the suit you wear or the office you occupy. It's about creating something meaningful, something that lasts. Sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom to learn that lesson. Steve learned it the hard way, but then again, those are usually the lessons that stick. As the evening winds down, I gather everyone for a toast. Steve stands near the back, no longer needing to be the center of attention. To real success, I say, raising my glass, and to those brave enough to redefine what that means. Steve's eyes meet mine across the room, and I see in them something I never expected: gratitude. Not for the job or the opportunity, but for the lesson. The understanding that true success isn't about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. And sometimes, just sometimes, those two things happen to coincide perfectly at a corporate gala, when a brother-in-law's carefully constructed facade crumbles to reveal the foundation of something far more genuine. That's the thing about success, it doesn't need to announce itself. Real success whispers, while fake success shouts. Steve finally learned to listen for the whisper, and in the end, that might be the greatest success story of all.